The anabolic window is the idea that there is only a very narrow time window after each workout to consume your protein, usually around 30 to 60 minutes, depending on who you ask. And if you miss that deadline, then you will not get any gains from that workout. Or so the story goes. When I was younger, I absolutely believed this, and I would panic if I couldn't eat my protein within 30 minutes of my workout. And I would even wait with showering just to eat my protein bar first, because I was determined that these 5 minutes would make all the difference. In hindsight, this was a bit obsessive. But was I really wrong though? Or is there some truth to the anabolic window? Well, let's put 3 minutes on the clock and let's have a look. So it's really hard to say where the idea of the anabolic window comes from. My hypothesis is that it's probably been invented by some sort of supplement company that wanted to sell their protein shakes and powders and bars and whatnot. But it does have some scientific truth to it. Or at least it makes sense when you think about it. Because as it turns out, when you train fasted, muscle protein breakdown is elevated after a workout. The opposite is also true. When you consume some sort of protein, muscle protein synthesis rises. And many studies have found that muscle protein synthesis is elevated even further when consuming some sort of protein immediately after the workout. However, there are two things that I still want to mention. The first one is that muscle protein synthesis is elevated after a workout regardless of protein intake. And the second one is that spikes in muscle protein synthesis are not necessarily correlated with long-term muscle growth. Meaning that just because rates of muscle protein synthesis are elevated, it doesn't necessarily mean that you also pack on a ton of muscle mass. And that's why I want to ignore all of the studies that just looked at muscle protein synthesis rates as an outcome, and rather focus on those studies that actually tracked muscle hypertrophy over several weeks or months. And in a nutshell, some studies found somewhat evidence for the anabolic window, while others didn't. And these differences might as well arise from different methodologies used in these different studies. But let me explain. For example, in their 2013 meta-analyses, Brad Schoenfield and colleagues looked at the combined results of a total of 20 studies. And in their overall analysis, it seemed like a post-workout protein shake led to increased muscle growth. However, when they controlled for the total daily protein intake, these differences completely disappeared. And when you look closely at the individual studies, in many studies where they found a beneficial effect of consuming some sort of post-workout protein, the total protein intake between the two groups were not matched, meaning that the post-workout protein group consumed more protein overall than the control group. So we can't really say whether the effects that we see are just from increased protein intake overall or from protein timing. And because of this flaw in methodology, I don't think that we can actually draw any meaningful conclusions from such studies. On the other hand, studies that matched the protein intake between groups found no difference in muscle growth, whether you eat your protein before your workout, after your workout, or at any random time of the day. And what this tells us is that overall daily protein intake is the most important variable when it comes to muscle growth. It also tells us that when you eat enough protein, then protein timing is only secondary, and the effect is probably very minimal. I'm saying minimal though and not zero, because at least other studies found that intentionally delaying protein intake after workout does not confer any benefits. And especially when training fasted, consuming some protein as soon as possible after the workout has some benefits. Again, on the other hand, if you've had a pre-workout meal 1 or 2 hours before your workout, then studies have also shown that levels of amino acids in your system are still sufficiently high, and it's perfectly okay to wait for your next regularly scheduled meal. And that suggests that if the anabolic window exists and if it is important, then it is certainly much larger, meaning about 5 to 6 hours around your workout, so both before and after. So as you can probably guess from these explanations, the anabolic window is still highly debated in the scientific literature. But in my opinion, the anabolic window does exist. However, in a different form than what is presented to you by many gym bros and ads and whatever. Meaning that you will not lose your gains if you don't drink a protein shake immediately after the workout. Rather, the anabolic window is open for much longer, both before and after your workout. But even if the anabolic window exists, it is still not really clear whether it is actually important for muscle growth. Because when total daily protein intake is met, then it almost doesn't matter when exactly you consume your protein. So based on the scientific literature, what we know to date, here are my practical recommendations. The absolutely most important thing is to eat enough protein during the day. And for muscle growth, I recommend between 1.6 and 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And if consuming a protein-rich meal or a protein shake after your workout helps you reach that recommended protein intake, then by all means do it. But I'd say if you had a protein-rich pre-workout meal a few hours before your workout, then you don't need to stress about eating protein right away. It's usually okay to just wait for the next meal that you would have anyway. It's a little bit different when you're training fasted, because in that case it might be beneficial to eat some sort of protein as soon as you can after your workout, just to be on the safe side. Okay, but that was it for today's video, my take on the anabolic window. But before you go, I have a small announcement to make about how this channel is going to continue. So first of all, huge thanks to all of you. I hoped for 100 subs by the end of the year, and now we're already at more than 300, so that is absolutely fantastic. And second, as you probably noticed, I missed 2 uploads in December. I started my PhD in December, and I don't want to say I have less time than I thought I'd have, because I knew it's gonna be a lot of work, but I rather underestimated how long it's actually taking me to make all of these videos. So for 2023, I'll have to go back to 1 upload every 2 weeks, because everything more than that is simply not sustainable for me. Yeah, I'll also be on vacation in the first 2 weeks in January, and then I'll go to a conference the week after, so there will be a video next week, and then we'll see each other again at the end of January. And that's when I'll start doing this 1 upload every 2 weeks schedule. Yeah, it's all a bit complicated, it's ever changing, it's confusing, and I have to figure it out as I go. So thanks a lot for sticking with me regardless. Yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I wish you a happy new year, and I'm gonna see you in 2023. Bye.